What's up? It's Matt Hill, Ruthless Circle Radio. Trying to do at least one recording a day. Trying to get this YouTube channel up and going. Got some t-shirt designs. Me and this girl named Karina have been working on, so trying to coincide everything together. I don't know if that's the word, but I'm pretty articulate for an uneducated dude. You know what I mean? It's prison. A lot of people urge me to do a YouTube channel. It's, of course, I didn't mean much hits on it, but is what it is. Been told a lot, especially in prison. You gotta be the fucking dumbest smart motherfucker I've ever met, Matthew Hill. Until that many, many times over and over. It's I've got I guess a unique way of looking at things, and like E40 said, I guess it's the art of storytelling, but the stories I tell are real stories, you know what I mean? So it's not any need to embellish on them, so just getting out of prison. If I'd had this microphone in prison, it would have been one thing, because I had plenty of support in there. Since getting out of prison and no support, so it's makes it quite difficult. Got a friend, two friends, Emily and Karina, who's helped me out more than anybody. So it's Emily's a fucking little trick, and she's hard to fucking deal with, but she's helped me out quite a bit on getting this YouTube channel up and going. So is Karina. She's graphic artist, designing first shirts and stuff. So it's so I had a pretty good setup at the Oxford House. This is my background now. Got kicked out of the Oxford House, so Oxford House is a lot like I did 4.5 years in prison and went to got put in drug court. That I didn't get drug court or this opportunity first. I got one of these prison cells first. You know what I mean? So so people is always like, well, you're stuck on that, well, motherfucker. Y'all put me in there first. Y'all should have gave me this opportunity first. Y'all didn't give me this opportunity first. You put me straight in prison. I was already raised by men. It was imprisoned. So, my grandfather, who was a big part in raising me. My father, who was a very, very, very big part in raising me. I was like this with my father, Karina's drawn up a design we've worked on called GNA. It's got the blood and the crip rag twisted together. I ain't no gangbanger, but I call it. The idea come from my father and my grandfather. I'm a third generation of the imprisoned, so my mind works a lot like theirs. It's not so much criminal minded or penitentiary minded or institutional minded. It's the people that surround or the institutionalized. You're institutionalized to society. My LSI in prison said that I had cognitive behavior problems. So I asked, my case manager, what's that mean? You know what I mean? I'm confused. What's that mean? You're a nonconformist. Well, I mean, that's a good thing. That means I'm not institutionalized. If I'm a nonconformist, then I'm not conforming to an idea of an institutionalized society. That makes me non-institutionalized. I isolate myself in these rooms like this to get away from the institutionalized people. This isn't because I'm institutionalized. It's because my surroundings are institutionalized. People have a hard time understanding that. My grandfather and father did the same thing. For those that knew my grandfather, Robert Joe Hill, my true grandfather, you know, he locked himself he had a den. It was a little bigger than this, but he stayed in there, TV, his old lady, and very few people that he allowed in. You know, my father, me, my brothers. You know, so you know, my father did the same thing. He had a den, and he liked to lock himself away from all the institutionalized motherfuckers. You know, this is my domain. You know, if I like you, you're welcome in here. I ain't reaching for you motherfuckers. Y'all ain't worth reaching for, you know. So, you know, they would be labeled with cognitive behavior problems, but see, they were successful people. You know, I was talking to my friend Christy Schaefer earlier, and you know, I have a lot of people in this program and stuff, and in my family who thinks they know what success is. You know what I mean? My grandfather, he was placed in the penile system at 10 years old for stealing a loaf of bread during the Great Depression. You know, so you know, then he did a couple more prison stints later on in life. You know what I mean? In his 30s and 40s. So you know, couldn't read or write. No, he had a sixth grade education, you know, and died a multi-millionaire for those who know him, you know what I mean. He shipped more money than the people with these college degrees on the other side of my family who think they're successful will make in their entire life, you know what I mean. So it's hard for me to, when I was raised by people who did things from a poor background but became highly successful, versus these people who had all the white privilege and affluency on their side and with their college degrees and stuff, who answer to other people, you know what I mean. My grandfather, like myself, has never had a real job, you know. I'm 38 years old. I've been pretty successful in life, I think. You know, I've never done without, so you know what I mean. But I've only had one quote real job my entire life also, you know what I mean. Never asked nobody for nothing. I ain't no bum, nothing like that. Neither was my grandfather, you know what I mean. He, like myself, he got himself in Little Rock, Arkansas, some chop shop charges, and he had to, he bounced out to California for a minute, and got him a job at the docks down there, he said, and in L.A., and said, I worked there for about 2 months and said, I'll never work for another motherfucker as long as I goddamn live. And he kept his word to that, you know what I mean. I know where he comes from, you know. For those that work for other people, I'm not talking shit about you, more power to you, you know what I mean. I've worked all them jobs. I've just done it for myself, you know what I mean. I've never done it for another, you know what I mean. I've been a hard worker for that. I've got scars on my body bigger than some people are tall, you know what I mean, from working, so. I'm not talking down on those, but for me personally, it's I'm not cut out for that kind of structure. You know what I mean? It don't jive with my soul, and it's you know, he when he was 50 years old, he started a landfill, Spartan Dump, out in North Tulsa. It's where a lot of the money come from, and you know, he put in you know, like E40 says, sometimes in order to do some right, you got to do some wrong. And, you know, he sold pornography, condoms, handmade sexual toys for women on the road to save up the money to buy that landfill, you know what I mean. A lot of people don't, well, you shouldn't say that. Well, it's the truth. It's the truth. He wasn't shy about it. My father wasn't shy about it, and that's where the money come from, so, you know, what's up, you know. And sometimes in order to do some right, you got to do some wrong, you know. Easy made an industry for his brothers and sisters out of crack cocaine. So, you know, just because it starts out as a negative doesn't mean we can't turn it into a positive. So, never be ashamed of who or what you are or where you come from. If we forget where we come from, then we forget that all money has blood upon it. You know what I mean? We think our money's more righteous than the next man's money. All money's got blood on it. All money's blood money. So it's hard for me to adapt to these ideas and principles that they try to force down my throat. You know what I mean? Because I learned from people who rejected those ideas themselves. You know what I mean? So it's people are like, well, where that line of thinking get you? Well, same place I got my grandfather, the penitentiary. You know what I mean? So oh fucking well. You know what I mean? I went to prison. Judge me on that. I paid my dues to society. I paid my time. You know what I mean? So I promise you, I got more of an education in that penal system than you'll get in that college. Like E40 said, I got more partners behind them walls than I do in college. So it's my grandfather made more money selling rubbers and sex toys to women on the road than my mom's brother, who's got a master's degree from TU, will make in his entire life. So and that's real. He bought a multi-million-dollar business selling sexual pleasure toys and condoms on the road. So, my cousin Sherry Kay, she grew up super poor with my father and my Uncle Bob, out there in Catoosa. She said, he's over at Uncle Joe. That was my grandpa that she called him Uncle Joe. We was playing up in his attic one day, me and your dad, and so there was these wooden sticks painted black. Hundreds of them, hanging from the ceiling. What are those, Billy? What are those, Billy? So those are Christmas ornaments. Sherry, he called her Jugs, from the Archie comics, and those are Christmas ornaments, and they were hand carved wooden dildos painted black that he was selling on the road. So he finally told her later on in life, that's how he made his money. You know what I mean? I got into it with his daughter the other day, I don't want to hear that. Well, you sure didn't mind spending his money that he made off them wooden black dildos, Kathy, did you? I mean, he bought you that 2-story house, didn't he, that you clucked off? He bought you all them brand new cars and them barrel racing horses, didn't he, off them wooden black dildos? So never be ashamed of who or what you are or where you come from. Just because some people judge unjustly and think that something's wrong doesn't make it wrong. Do we look at Eric Wright as a crack dealer, or do we look at him as somebody that took a poison sent to his people and bought this microphone for many millions of his brothers and sisters who never had a voice before? You know what I mean? My grandpa, who had to go to the penitentiary to get a loaf of bread for him and his twin sister Jimmy Joe, when he was 10 years old and went to prison for it. You know what I mean? He understood early on that they'll kill you for money. So you got to kill for money sometimes, you know what I mean? And, that puts a perspective upon life and money and the police and things like that at a very young age, you know what I mean? My grandpa hated the police till the day he died. He had this daughter that popped in his life 1 year before he died. When he died in 1977 of cancer. This girl, like she watched him from afar, and knew when he was dying, knew he was a multi-millionaire. My grandfather was, of course, that money got, wound up in attorneys' hands and stuff like that. But, nonetheless, and he hated attorneys, hated police, and hated attorneys. So, she pops in his life at the end, wanting her, I mean, sorry you weren't around, I don't know you. I mean, here's your car or something. So he croaks, well, she gets the, do the funeral and all that, and it just steps in like she'd been there the whole time, forgetting, about Bobby and Billy and Kathy and the ones that were there the whole time, you know what I mean? So she had two sons, which had been, I guess, genetically my grandfather's grandkids. They weren't around. They didn't know the man. So, I mean, can you really call them his grandkids? You know what I'm saying? Me and Bill and Joe, and we were around the man every day. So, we were his grandkids. Tara Joe was his granddaughter. You know what I mean? It's Bobby Joe was his granddaughter. We was around the man. You know what I mean? Daily. They were police. My grandpa hated the police. at his funeral, since Kathy and Uncle Bob and my father weren't allowed to, orchestrate the funeral. That people that didn't even know or care about the man got to do all that. Well, they made these policemen, not Bill and Joe and Bobby Joe and all that, the pallbearers, but these police. Well, my grandfather's didn't have he was kind of a loner like myself. He had one friend, his name was, he had a couple friends, but one close friend, J.B. Henry, and he said, he stood up at the funeral and said, hey, check this out. Joe Hill had too many cops carrying him to a concrete tomb his whole life. If he was to come out of that casket, he'd kill these sons of bitches. He was a cop killer. I've seen him do it, It's a known cop killer. So, hated the police. Hated the police. The last thing he wanted was the police carrying him to his last concrete tomb. You know what I mean? He'd been placed in enough concrete tombs by the police. But, people say fuck the police. Some people just say it to be cool, thinking they're outlaws because they got an NWA album and stuff. But if you ain't never been on the bad side of that killer's gun, somebody that has a hate for you, you might only see the Andy Griffith in the cop, but that same Andy Griffith turns into Darth Vader real quick when he don't like a person. When a person stands up for his rights, when they're trained to hate a certain individual, especially the African American. That's what keeps me so well versed on this. Due to the upbringing of my father and my grandfather, it helps me have a deeper understanding of the African American people, because my father and my grandfather, they come up from a very, very, very poor background. As close as you gonna get to African American poverty, you know what I mean. The only blessings they had was white skin. So later on in life, that come a blessing to them. You know what I mean. African Americans don't have that. So it's when you're 10 years old and the police throw you in prison because you're hungry, it's you get a different perspective on the police and society and in general. It's not only as you look at the police in an ill manner, you look at that society that hires and pays and supports the police in arresting hungry people. Like Tupac Shakur said, we got a war on drugs when we need a war on poverty. Drugs are just a catalyst to make that war, to cover up the war, the need for a war on poverty. You know what I mean? To profit off of people's poverty is what drugs does. So, So some people, there's three types of people. There's ones that are here, fuck the police, and be like, well, that's a bad. You shut that man down. Shut his mic off right now. Shut that man's mic. How dare he say fuck the police? Then there's those who got their old tattoos and they think they're cool, and they might have talked some shit to a security guard once at a hotel or at a nightclub and think they're outlaws saying fuck the police, fuck the police. And there's the minority of us, the majority of the African Americans, but a minority of us white folks, people like my father. And, I put a Memorial Day, I went out there, my father's grave didn't have any flyers on it, and nor would he have wanted any, you know what I mean? He was a poor man. Before you spent money on flyers for his grave, he'd just assume you fed somebody with that money. So, I went out there and I put an upside down American flag out there on it and a sign that said fuck the police. And, I put a note, I put my name on it, I put my label on it, you know what I mean? Hey, it's Billy Hill's son, Matthew Hill, and I put this. If you don't understand what this means, you didn't know the man, because he didn't like the police neither. He'd been on the bad side of that killer's gun before. He knows that badge, that Andy Griffith turns to Darth Vader real quick. Say something the police don't like. Use your freedom of speech. Use your freedom, your right to remain silent against them, and see how quick they turn on you. How quick Andy Griffith all of a sudden gets a different look about him. Too many white people don't see that, and we don't understand what defund the police means. We don't understand what fuck the police means. There's a reason for fuck the police, and it ain't just to sound cool for the women. It ain't to make yourself sound like some outlaw thug. Until you've been on the other side of that hate-filled police officer's pistol with a license to kill, called a badge, you don't really understand fuck the police. I earned my fuck the police tattoo. I understand the true meaning of fuck the police. The police will fuck you over real quick. They don't give a fuck about your rights. Only if you're a obedient member of their society do you get respect from the law. So you know what I mean. If you are have cognitive behavior problems, as I've been labeled with, then you don't understand when the police roll up to your house on a weekly basis, say, Mr. Hill, I can't wait to put you in prison. We're going to get you in prison one of these days. To police, you do that often, you know. I was explaining that with my ex-wife Kendria a couple weeks ago on the phone. She's like, man, you ain't got to tell me. I know you. I was there when they would show up and do that on a daily basis. The police hate me. Well, those that know me, there's no reason to hate me. Now, I'm the same dude day in, day out. I'm no different. I'm no fake motherfucker. I'm not no two-faced dude. I'm a quiet dude. I'm self-reserved. I keep some of my opinions to myself just to save on drama. But all in all, I'm a pretty decent dude, you know. But the police hate me, you know. It's I've been on national news a couple times with the police. You know, one of them's Mr. Hill's a real piece of work. I thought, man, old granddaddy'd be proud about that one. So, you know, when you've seen Martin Luther King Jr. wrote, 1963 from a Birmingham jail, when hate-filled policemen curse, kick, and often kill your black brothers and sisters. Perhaps, it started out on that, talking about unjust and just laws, and the white community telling the black community they needed to wait. Well, what do you want justice for right now? Well, perhaps y'all haven't felt the stinging darts of segregation. Perhaps you haven't been the victim of hate-filled policemen who kick, curse, and often kill your black brothers and sisters. So it's, when you've been on that side of the law, I'm just a dude out there living, paid for home. You know what I mean? Paid for business. You know what I mean? Tax-paying citizen. What's up? Why you gonna roll up to my house and tell me you can't wait to put me in prison? I ain't running no meth labs. You know what I mean? I ain't no dope sailor. You know what I mean? It's what's your problem with me? You know what I mean? Same officer has had me on my knees out there, cuffed behind my back, saying, Mr. Hill, you know I love nothing more than blow your goddamn brains out, don't you? I go, yes, sir, I do. You've told me that more than once. You and all your cronies. So, that's not just the Catoosa Police Department. I've had the Tulsa Police Department treat me in the same manner. I've had many police agencies treat me in the same manner. What for? Because I invoke my right to remain silent. Because I often invoke my right to freedom of speech. Because I won't cower down to their ways. Because I call them out on their evils. Because I ain't scared to say fuck the police. You want to know how you say fuck the police? You don't look them in the eye and say fuck the police. You do things like enact your right to remain silent. You know what I mean? That's the number one way to say it, so you know what I mean. It's real easy to justify police actions when you make another people propagate them as an unjust people, when all they're doing is trying to live life. Many of them with a hungry belly. Many of them just using the tools they have around. Many of them doing the exact same thing. Is what's the black man on the corner slinging 20 sacks of marijuana doing any different than the white dude with white privilege at the dispensary? Because he paid a little more taxes, the white dude. Well, that dude, the black community only has, we've been putting him in prison for selling marijuana for so long that they've been up to 90% of the victims on the war on drugs. They hold 0.5% of the U.S. wealth. They can't afford those tax stamps and those permits and such to get these dispensaries. Now, since they've been the victim of the war on drugs at a rate up to 90%, being only 14% of the population, how come we don't give them a little justice like they do the Native Americans? We give them, open access to smoke shops and casinos, which we should, you know what I mean? I got love for the natives, so I'm just saying, let's be just about it. What was different about the African Americans? All of a sudden we start bringing justice to the war on drugs, and the white man gets first taste of it. We get the dispensaries. Well, we got the money for it. Why can't they? They can get the same permits. No, they can't. They got 0.5% of the wealth. We've been putting them in prison for 40 years during this war on drugs at a rate of 90%. Well, we was only 3 to 5% of the victim or of the people arrested for it. So you know what I mean. We need to super fund. They should get the first dibs. There should be grants and loans and incentives to put these African Americans who've done 20 years for selling 20 sacks of marijuana. Now that it's legal, they should get the first shot at dispensaries. We should be paying them to set their dispensaries up. So, that's called justice. So, it's they could do, no, they can't. There's the Ruthless circle. Once the war on drugs was enacted against the African American people, because during the 80s and the 90s, during the 1990s, 1/3 of African American male youth between the age of 19 and 30 years old was incarcerated, vastly due to the war on drugs. 1/3. Well, those are the fathers. That keeps that ruthless circle going. Well, how's the kids? They got to take care of mama. Mama got babies. You take the fire, you kill the nuclear structure. It keeps that ruthless circle going. Then we don't pump no industry, no relief into them, no air into them. Then what can they do? It's all y'all gave us since 1980 is crack cocaine and marijuana to sell. Ain't no jobs, ain't no education. There ain't nothing for us. There's a reason they're the career criminal acts and stuff like that. Those are give them careers other than felonious careers. You know what I mean? All of a sudden we make selling drugs a non-felonious career, and the white man gets the first taste of justice upon it. There are very few African Americans can afford a dispensary, maybe, but they should have the first ones. They should be tax-free like an Indian smoke shop. They've been the ones persecuted during this war on drugs by the vast majority. So, they should get the first taste of all justice on the war on drugs. They've paid the price for the war on drugs like no other race. When you got, let's look at the day's numbers. When I say this, let's remember, this is the lowest number the African Americans has ever had in our penal system since first being allowed in our penal system in the 1860s. Before that, it was just plantations in the noose, you know what I mean? So when we actually started putting them in DOC, they've made up for around 90% of the prison population. Since then, up until this past year, all of a sudden they're down to 52% of the prison population, yet they're only 14% of the population. Still at 52%. 14% of the population. 14% of the population making up for over half of the felony crime in this country, versus 87% of the population being made up of 6 or 7 different races, only making up for 48% of that. They are by far the large margin, the mass majority of those affected by this war on drugs. So when justice comes to it, the majority of that justice should be bestowed upon the African American, like the state of Oklahoma here. We start looking into the fixing the criminal justice system. Well, who gets the first taste of that? Well, the white man does. Methamphetamines is made a misdemeanor, not crack cocaine. Well, it's not the mass majority of white folks getting put in prison, it's African Americans. Why don't we fix the problems there first? They face the greatest penalty of it. They face the greatest injustice of it. So why don't they get the first taste of justice? African Americans should have marijuana dispensaries as the Native Americans have tobacco smoke shops and such. They should be able to sell it cheaper than the white man, easier to obtain their dispensaries than the white man. That's called justice, people. Not only do we owe them for reparations of slavery, I'm just speaking on the war on drugs aspect of it. So, I'm going to end this recording. I'm trying to keep these to about 30 minutes where I can keep the attention a little better. Peace.